All right, welcome back, everyone, to the PMR podcast. My name's Andrew. I'm an alcoholic and an addict. This is episode 46. Really special guest today. Can't wait to get into it.
Welcome back. My name is Mitch. I'm an alcoholic addict. This is episode 46. Today we're bringing on Jonny Berry. He's the owner of the clothing brand Always Sober. We're super excited to talk with him, hear his story, and hear his goals for his clothing brand and the brand in general. And yeah, I'm super excited to talk with you.
Appreciate you guys having me. It means a lot.
Hell yeah. So I wanted to ask, like, off jump, if you could give us, like, because you've never drank and never used a substance before, and some people might hear that and be like, interested into how that came about. So if you could give us like a rundown of a little bit of your story and the inspiration for starting Always Sober.
For sure. Yeah. So my name is Jonny Berry. I'm 24 years old. Never drank, never smoked, never will, but I don't judge anybody who does. Everybody goes through life differently. Some people can handle it, some people can't. And a lot of people don't realize that they can or can't handle it until it's too late. Um, and yeah, so growing up in Long Island, New York, I mean, pretty much everywhere across the world, but alcohol, drugs around you everywhere. But I grew up thankfully like, a confident kid and everything. And I always just wanted to be my own self. I didn't want to be anybody else. And as later years and early high school, late high school, when we would go to parties, all my friends, everybody else was drinking, smoking, and I just never did it. And um once like 10th grade hit, late 10th grade, I really decided, I'm like, you know what, like I'm just not going to do this. Because with me being so outgoing, enthusiastic, ADHD, I've always been the crazy one. So like whenever I'm out at parties or anything, people think I'm the drunk one, even though I don't drink. And I'm still like dancing, partying, having fun, playing games, doing everything that everybody else is doing, just sober. And I'm like, well, if I could already do this and be myself, why do I have to, take something to get me all out of whack? And once I kept on like telling everybody that I wasn't gonna do it, like no one believed me at first, and then like, oh, what about after prom? Like, you're not gonna take a sip after prom? Prom came, nothing. And it was just like, what about when you're 21? Nothing. It's just like keeps on going. And then, definitely like once I was like 21, everybody was like, yeah, this is, I mean, even before that, honestly, but because technically you're really not supposed to drink or anything when you're still you're 21. But, once people realize, oh, wait, he's really not going to do it, then they kind of just stop asking. But definitely like there was a lot of peer pressure growing up. But on the same hand, it's like I never fell into it. So it really didn't feel like it in a sense, because I always just like stood my ground. I always just like knew my goal, and I wasn't gonna let anybody, shift that goal away from me. And now we're here. So
Hell yeah.
yeah.
And when you talk about that goal, what that goal look like for you?
Great question. Yeah. I mean, I think the goal at the time and even now is basically like I always just wanted to be myself. When I said something, oh, I could do this, and people said no, you can't, I wanted to make sure I could do it. Or anything like that. Like I always just wanted to be me, whatever that looked like. Like this is who I am. If people like me for me, that's great. If people don't, that's great too. Like at the end of the day, this is who I am. I'm not gonna change for nobody, and I just want to be myself.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Because for Mitch and I, and this is a podcast, right, about sobriety. Um, well, not exclusively about sobriety, but largely about sobriety. And we bring people on a lot, and we ourselves are recovering addicts, alcoholics. So this is a foreign concept to me,
Right.
like straight up. Like and this is not to say like you're crazy or anything,
No,
but
no, I
for
get it.
me, like I couldn't imagine doing
Right.
this
Right.
in my childhood.
Right.
So I kind of want to dive in a little bit into what, like, first of all, like as people started to do it, like what did that what did it look like to you to say no? Like what was that? Was that an easy thing? Was that something that was easily accepted when people started to like question that? How did that all go?
Right. Yeah. No, I first want to say, I 100% see where you come from. Like, especially with me having this brand and like, saying my message. I don't know the other side, like I've never been there. So like, I don't claim to know like, oh, this people are like, oh, teach me what, like, I don't, I can't teach you my ways. You know what I mean? But I'm just trying to show people, look, this is how I live my life, and hopefully I can inspire people, because like I said, like I haven't been in other people's shoes, you know.
Mm,
So I just want to show people like, look, this is the choices that I made. And hopefully, like, by I make videos and stuff by people watching my videos, maybe, they can get inspiration from it. But so your question basically, you know, looking back, what I saw, honestly, now looking back, like, I don't really know how, okay. So because of the ADHD, the way that I guess my brain at the time was seeing it wasn't really seeing anything out of the normal, if that makes sense. Like yeah, I saw people like, oh, they're getting sloppy and this, that, and the third, but because my mind was like always racing and just like so out there, it just felt like I was like already in the mix, if that makes sense. So I definitely like, I'm not gonna lie, like looking back now, having ADHD, I think definitely in a weird way probably helped me never drink. But on the same token, that's the main reason why a lot of people with ADHD do drink. So, like in that article I sent you guys, like there was a study like 25, it's probably honestly more, but like 25% of alcoholics have ADHD. So it's like, yeah, like it's really, you could even tell right now my head's always spinning. Like my head's just always spinning. So it's really hard for me to like pinpoint exactly. I just always in the back of my mind just knew that it was like wrong, really. And I definitely have to like shout out like my parents, you know what I mean? They definitely, instilled me like, oh, like this isn't the right thing to do, like when you're young. But also I'm not gonna lie, like at the end of the day, if I was gonna do it, I was gonna do it. It didn't matter what anybody was gonna say.
right.
Um, so, but it basically, to really answer your question, what it really looked like was just something that I didn't want to be involved with. It looked like it was going to get dangerous. And I
Hmm.
always wanted to be aware of my surroundings. Even to this day, like, I'm always like, looking on my shoulder. I want to know where everything is. And every move I make, I want it to be because of me, not because of something else or somebody else, if that makes
Welcome back
sense.
to the PMR podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I wanted to share with you our first partnership with Clean Cause. Clean Cause is a pretty awesome company. They sell yerba mate drinks. The founder is in recovery, and they put 50% of their net profits back into those struggling with addiction and alcoholism. Absolutely love their company, absolutely love their message, and very thankful for them to partner with us. If you're interested in getting some, you go to their website, cleancause.com. All right. When you're checking out, you're going to enter in Mitch20 into the discount code area, and that's going to get you 20% off on these fire drinks. Right now, I got that cherry lime. All right. Enjoy
Yeah,
this week.
that makes a lot of sense. And I also hear like you had, good support from your parents. That was another question I was going to ask. You already kind of answered it. But that's really important early on when we're making those decisions is to have supportive parents. So that's obviously I feel like probably played a role in
Yeah.
you keeping that decision
Right.
and being strong in it, right?
Right. So like I said this on Jersey Jerry's Barstool's podcast too, actually.
Right.
So like my dad, he hasn't drank alcohol in like 15 years. But he never really he wasn't an alcoholic or anything. But um, like obviously your upbringing has a lot to do with, your life, 100%. So what I said was, my dad is the best dad ever. He does everything for everybody. Great dude, right? But he didn't have his dad died when he was 13, right? So, you know, you look at that and you're like, he didn't really have a dad for long to show him how to, be a good father, right? Because he unfortunately passed. So same thing with like alcohol and drugs. Definitely, if you grow up and your parents are in that mix, you're more susceptible. But on that same token, the analogy that I'm saying is like, just because your situation might be not the best, that doesn't have to be your outcome, because at the end of the day, like, it all lies on you,
Yeah.
so
I feel when I'm listening to you, like I agree with Andrew, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way either. I'm like envious of that route. Had I been able to take that route, that would have been sick. And I met a dude in a meeting a while ago. It's weird how much this has been like coming up multiple times, but there's a guy when I was in Ohio, when I first got sober, that went to one of the meetings that I went to, and he was part of the part of AA,
mhm,
did the 12 steps, but he had never drank alcohol or done drugs in his life. His story was a little bit different, though. His family members were pretty much all
right.
addicts and alcoholics. And so, but I still think that was interesting. And I love the idea of like, it seems that you had a true sense of self, early on, and were supported by your parents and
Yeah,
family to stay true to that. And I feel like, for me at least, I didn't have that acceptance of
right.
myself. I didn't have that true sense of self. That true sense of self for me was like too scary and didn't want to do that. And I folded to that, peer pressure, that normalization of drinking early and partying, and this is what we do, and if you want to be cool, you do this, and
Yeah,
if you want to move up on that social hierarchy, you do that. And because I had such a propensity to drinking and drugs and liked it so much, you check back in a couple of years down the road, and I'm off to the races with all this stuff. So I do, it sounds like that acceptance in you has been instilled early, and you've kind of like gone through, you know, saying that you're like ahead of others is not what I mean to say, but like, I don't know. It's just kind of really dope to see someone that, knows what they're okay with doing and knows what they're not okay with doing, and setting up that kind of like boundary early and holding to it.
yeah. Like, I gonna try to strive to be like kind of be that acceptance for other people in a sense. Like, I want to like give people the confidence so like they don't give up on themselves in a sense,
Hmm.
and because like I'm not gonna lie, like I as long as I can remember, like I've always been so confident for sure. And even trying to like talk about when I was like younger in not a confidence way, like just like gets me all like whatever. But like, when I was in like when I was like young, like it's even hard for me to say this to be honest, because I don't like thinking that like I thought I was stupid. You know what I mean? Like when I look back, when I was young, like even in like I thought I was stupid. Like I would say that whether I actually meant it or not, you know what I mean? Like when I was in ninth grade, I had 70, like you know what I mean? I had like 60s and 70s. Like, you know what I mean? And then like 10th grade, I had 80s. 11th grade, I had 90s. 12th, like I just kept on like going up, Like especially when it comes to school, like it was all a game. You just gotta play it right, figure it out. But like I don't know, it's you just really can't give up on yourself in a sense. And some people like that they don't even know how to believe in themselves, and I want to try to like give that ability for people to be able to like be confident in themselves because like there'll be young kids that have ADHD and like they feel like they're different or something, but it's like I feel like if I didn't have it, like I wouldn't be even who I am, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And about the whole like being like cool and things like that, like oh when people are younger, it's like oh people that are going to party and drink, it's more like oh that's cool, so it's weird. I always say this, people when they would see me out, they thought I was doing that stuff. Like years later, once people found out, like, oh, I actually never drank, like I would have people that I would be in conversation with that didn't really like, know me personally, and they're like, wait a minute, like so like all those videos on Snapchat, like you were sober, you know what I mean? And people were looking at it like, oh, I was like a cool kid, but meanwhile, I was sober. So not that I want people to think I was doing that, but it's the fact of like that someone could be like, oh, this guy is cool. Now, look, I don't care. But you know what I'm trying to say? It's like I want to show people that like, yeah, you can be cool or whatever. And you don't need to have fun and things like that. And I also understand that me saying, oh, like I'm trying to show people that you don't need alcohol to have fun. It's not just about that. Obviously, people do it to numb the pain and other reasons than just to have fun. So it's I just like to try to share what I know, you know what I mean? Because like I said before, like, you guys are in a different situation than me, you know what I mean? And I'm in a different situation than you. Doesn't make us better or worse than anybody. It's just this is everybody's life's different, and everybody could try to learn from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Um, a couple things that you
Yeah.
just kind of brought up that I have some questions about.
Yeah.
Um, so not drinking, not using, and I want to go, I want to have some time to dive in to where you're at now and the always sober brand and
Yeah.
the message and everything there. But I do have, I still, because again, like I'm beating a dead horse here, but like this is a new philosophy for Andrew. Um, this is something that Andrew doesn't know much about.
Right.
I never used drugs. I was predominantly into drugs. I didn't do a lot of drinking. I drank when I didn't have drugs, but my substances were used to calm my brain, right? I think you and I, Jonny, and probably Mitch as well, we have similar. I had a brain that never shut off, right? So, um, what I wanted to do was shut it off
Right.
all the time, and I used drugs to do that.
Yeah.
And so when I hear your kind of story, about childhood and high school and all that, the partying and being in a environment where people are drinking and like some people don't necessarily use the drugs or drink to go and party. They use it to they use it to calm down,
Mm.
like to bring themselves down to a like a almost a relaxation, like a release from the thoughts and from the chaos and the nonsense of their brain. So my question for you is like, and then disclosing and having ADHD, right? Like, how do you quiet your brain? Like, is that something you do? Is that something you don't do? Are you scared that like, and if it's not something that you do or have experience, are you scared that at some time you might be like, I need to find a way to quiet this thing down?
Um, it's funny because I almost want to say it might be the opposite. And I'm going to explain that, but I don't know. But basically, the answer to your question is I don't know if there is like I'm just always going. I mean, don't get me. Well, like right now I'm calm. Right now, me talking, I'm calm. You know what I mean? But um, I almost in some ways kind of like it when I'm going rather than being calm. You know, because I
Mhm.
think when I'm going more is when I feel like this is who I am. You know what I mean? Like I feel like at my true Johnny Berry self is when yeah, I might be sporadic and really loud and whatever, but I feel like at the same time like that's who I am, you know? Um but I don't really think there's really ways of me just for me personally. I think I'm always just going, you know what I mean? And like from outside of point of view, like growing up, people are like, oh, like I wish I could think like you, and I wish I could be positive, but like, it's like, it's not like always easy, you know what I mean? Like I have, it's like it's almost like every week I'm like, all right, this is the last week. I'm like, no more messing around. Like, it's just like a cycle of just, like, all right, like I'll even just say it's gonna sound funny, but like as crazy as it sounds, like I haven't drank like sugary drink in like 8 days. But I was on like a bender of like drinking like Gatorade and iced tea like every day for like the past like 8 months. You know what I mean? And like that's been something where like I overcome, even as like silly as it might sound, but it's like, sugar is like a drug in
Oh yeah.
itself. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
But like I
Yeah.
don't drink coffee or nothing like that either. Um, but like I don't know if I really do like calm down or like there's really nothing. I don't know. I think just being a family, I guess. Like, it's just I do a lot for other people. I think that's me, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm always putting other people first in a sense. And I think reaching out to other people and trying to help other people makes me feel better in a sense, you know. But yeah.
Are you
I
ever
guess.
scared that like that mindset and that kind of go, go, go attitude is like unsustainable, like in the long run? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so like I think I have the go 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 mindset, but also like physically it might not be go 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 right now. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm-hmm.
like it's like okay, so I'll tell you this. So about a year ago, I broke my foot, okay? And I was going to go to college to play football, and I broke my foot like 10 days before training camp, and I couldn't walk for like 3 months. And it basically, like, now looking back, I always like to think positive and everything has a reason and stuff like that. But it like it it messed me up pretty bad because you know I wasn't working out as much. Like I used to work it every day. Like I haven't been on a set schedule. I started eating more worse, you know, drinking more sugary. Like I went on like almost like a year tear of just like really not doing the right stuff. You know what I mean? And honestly, like now, like these past couple weeks, I've been trying to really like get myself in order because it kind of like, came crashing. Like all my brain is thinking my whole life was sports, football. That's all it was, 24/7. You know what I mean? And like this last year was like my last kind of. I have a 2 year degree in college, but I was gonna be like my last go ahead with college and football and everything. And then when it didn't happen, it was like, dang, it was like, well, this is it now. And I used to, work out a lot because of sports, but obviously, you got to work out and be healthy for your own life and everything like that. So it was just like a little, it was just like a little devastating, but at the end of the day, like, everything does have a reason, even if it's bad. And, you got to overcome things. But, like on the outside, it might look always like, oh, like, positive, this, that, and the third. But it's like, you have to understand how you had to get there, and it's like I definitely deal with a lot, but at the same time it's like, I have like people, whether it's true or not, my brain wants to be like, I got people counting on me, you know what I mean? Like I want to just be successful in whatever that even means to other people, but like, just keep pushing forward no matter what happens, basically.
Yeah.
So
I like that you like don't stand on, like, I feel like the word sober can have the interpretation that there was a drinking problem before and now
yeah.
you're sober. And so I appreciate that you don't let you point out the different, like, not the difference, but you point out that, you're not an addict and alcoholic and
Oh, for sure.
you're not speaking from that perspective. And I do really appreciate that. And I think my question would be like, through having this brand Do you have people like hitting you up and like asking for advice or guidance on a sober lifestyle that have a substance alcohol problem? And and if so, how do you handle that?
Right. So that just made me think of something. I'm actually going to explain real quick how I started the brand.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, after high school, um, everybody like knew me, like, oh, the kid that's not drinking, whatever. And it was like beginning of like 2019, maybe late 18. And I've always been like a business person slash entrepreneur. And I used to have like a brand, not a brand, but I would have, it's called Berry Motivational, like my last name instead of Very, like Berry Motivational. It'd be like rule number one, don't be number two. And I used to like, have t-shirts and whatever. But one day I'm like, I'm always sober, and I was like, I want to wear it to like show everybody like, oh, this is who I am. So I went online. I was like, oh, always sober hoodie, and I couldn't find anything. I'm like, huh, like that's weird because I thought it was a great saying. Like I'm not gonna lie to nobody. Like I thought it was just like a saying that everybody said. I don't know, And then I couldn't find it. I'm like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna just do it myself. So I went on GoDaddy.com. I bought alwayssober.com. It was like $1,000 because somebody else owned it, but they weren't using it. And I only had like $1,200 in my bank account. But I'm like, you know what? Like, it's never been the right time. I did it, bought it, and then the rest is history. So I wanted to like, wear it for me and also have other people wear it to like be proud of who they are, you know. But to answer your question about like, do people reach out? Yes, like I get all different types of people reaching out. Like either A, like, this is great what you're doing. I wish somebody when I was, your age was around me, doing this message, could have led me down the right path or whatever. Or it would be like younger kids, that are starting, 14, 15, and everybody's starting to vape and smoke and drink and whatever. And it's like people just see other kids doing it and they're like, oh, let me just do it. But they don't even know why they're doing it. They just
Mm.
wanted to fit in with the crowd and do whatever else is doing. So I want to try to like, try to emphasis to kids like, to be your own self and to have confidence or whatever. Um, but then just like the other day, literally, there's this guy who always supports me. Um, and he's got hoodies and his wristband he wears every day. He's 3 years sober. And it's crazy. Like I get the goosebumps too. It's like, look, I'm not saying a hoodie or a t-shirt's gonna change the world, right? But I mean, just that reminder to people, it could go a long way, like the guy, he's wearing the wristband, always sober. And like, if he's having a thought, he looks down. He's like, well, I can't let this, I just, invested in this brand or I'm wearing this proudly. I can't like, contradict myself. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you a quick story. So a couple years ago, I was in King Cullen. I don't know if you guys know what that is. Anyway, it's a grocery store. It's a New York thing. So King Cullen, I'm there. I'm wearing my always sober hoodie. Some guy comes up to me and he like has a phone. He's like, "Oh, I gotta take a picture." And I didn't know who this guy was. And I'm like, it's kind of like freak because this was like years ago where like my brand wasn't even like that. Not not big yet, but like people really didn't know me like that or anything, and or like they haven't seen it or anything. So he's like, "Oh, I gotta take a picture." I was like, all right, what's going on? He's like, oh, I'm 3 days sober. I gotta send it to my mom or something, right? And he was like, older guy. I was like, wow. I was like, keep pushing. Then like a week later, I'm in Home Depot and I see the guy again. He comes up to me. I'm like, yo, I was like, I remember you. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm 1 week so or whatever he said, right? So, and we're having this conversation like 10 minutes. And look, was my conversation to this guy gonna keep him sober for a million years? I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is after it was like 8 o'clock at night, do I think that that guy after that conversation was gonna go home and drink? I don't know, but probably not
Mm-hmm.
because of that. Like it was right in his brain, or you know what I mean? Like the interaction we had, like kept it fresh. And I actually sent that guy some t-shirts or whatever. And it's just like little things like that that could go a long way.
Yeah.
Um, And I go to like there was like this 5K end to addiction. I went there one time. I was giving out like wristbands and stuff like that, and some hoodies, and I just try to be involved in any way I can. And and like I said, it's different because my story, everybody's story is different, but I don't have like the normal sober story. Like I didn't have a problem, thank God. So sometimes it's hard for people to understand. Like it's like, well, okay, like this kid never been through what I'm like. Why am I gonna listen to him? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I always said, like, look, like I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm not trying to say, oh, this is how you. I'm just saying, look, this is how I chose to live my life. And if there's something you can get from it, that's great. You know what I mean? If there's something. And yeah.
I feel like we never know the impact that we can make on other people through interactions. And like the fact that you have merch that, or your brand says always sober, and it's a reminder, like I don't think you're hurting anyone. I definitely know that for sure. And I think that it's like it's what, like you were talking about with this guy. Like I completely agree with that. Like those interactions, people seeing that, you never know how you're planting a seed through a conversation or wearing a t-shirt. That might be something that helps keep me sober for a day. If I wear the shirt, wear the hat, or I see it in my dresser. You know what I mean? I think I appreciate you like supporting the community of people that are in recovery too. It's not like that's why I was super interested in having you on, because I think sometimes there's like and I've heard this from old timers in AA, like uh I got sober when I was 20, and there was a little bit of like a feeling that I had, whether it was real or not, that I hadn't gone through enough to be in those rooms and talk because I was 20,
Right.
and for inclusivity and like for whatever your story is, it doesn't really matter. We're all three of us are sober, whether we
Yeah.
identify as addicts, alcoholics, or whatever. And so I think anything that pushes the needle forward in terms of being open about recovery, being open about just not using substances or alcohol, spreading that message in general, whether you have a problem or not, I think that it's helpful, it's beneficial, and I appreciate like what you're doing in terms of in that aspect.
Yeah, no, for sure. I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, like with my TikToks and stuff, like when I've gone viral and stuff, there's definitely like haters and people that are like,
Always.
because, but it's like if you really want to understand where I'm coming from, you'll accept to learn kind of what my story and what I'm trying to tell. But if you see, you know, a video of me like dumping beer, because I have videos of me like dumping beer, you know what I mean? And it's like people are like, what, like, oh, you waste, like just like a million different things. But I think it's always been like where I've always just like, look, I know what I'm trying to spread. I know what I believe in. Like at the end of the day, if someone doesn't understand, you can only do so much. Like, look,
Yeah.
I'm just telling you how it is,
You
you
connect
know,
with who you connect with.
right, for sure. Um, but yeah, it's everything's a journey, and yeah, it's good stuff.
So I have a question about the way that those interactions with people in the recovery community go. So like, you're out like almost similar to your story about in the grocery store and then in Home Depot and and that's what recovery is, like for the record, whether you are have ever drank or not. And like, I don't say this to like identify you as an addict or alcoholic. Like, I believe my opinion is that you are a part of the recovery community.
Mhm.
Like, and that's not to say you're that you're one of us, or that your life was this or you had a problem, but simply by having those conversations kind of places you within our community. And that's like not a that's a good thing. I think
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing. But the thing that I want to know, and in the halls and whatever whatever you do, NAAA, whatever program that people are in for recovery, um there's kind of a philosophy that like we try to identify and not compare, and we try to identify with each other's stories and not compare, our differences and compare ourselves out of a relationship or out of a friendship or out of helping each other. So what I want to know is when you talk and you share your story and you share your experience with addicts and alcoholics who are in recovery, like, do you ever find that it's difficult for you to relate to them or them to relate to you, just simply because the difference is like inherent in the fact that people who are in recovery generally have used versus your story? So is there ever any, like, do you ever feel like any disconnect there, or is it easier to relate than I'm kind of putting on here?
Well, to be honest with you, I feel in ways that, as crazy as it might sound, I have had slash have tendencies that write alcoholic addict all over it, but
Oh, it doesn't sound crazy to me.
I just never did it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like, like I'll tell you just a quick thing, and this could, I think that is as weird as the story is, and like it's like what? Okay, so I'm lactose intolerant, right? So can't have milk. So, and I'm pretty good with it because like I get destroyed. So like if somehow I'll slip up and like have something with milk or whatever, next thing you know, I'm at Rite Aid with a tub of ice cream, four chocolate bar. Because I'm like, I'm already gonna be messed up. I'm like, I might as well just get more messed up and enjoy it, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? So like something as silly as that. I mean, just imagine if I drank. Like, you know what I mean? Like as crazy as it sounds, but like stuff like that, or like very like compulsive. Like once I'm thinking of something, like it's all, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's so like I do feel like look, don't get me wrong, people have been in jail, people have been homeless, like, so it's like I can't relate to that, but the way that they say it, like when I'll say that story, they'll be like, I'm the same way. You know what I mean? Or like, for instance, it's crazy. I'll be talking to a mother and, unfortunately, their son has passed away from overdose or whatever. And it's like, oh, yeah, he has ADHD too. And he did that. And it's like, but meanwhile, I'm here. We said the same exact story. We said the same exact story, but I'm still here. You know what I mean? So it's like, I always say this word and I say it wrong. And I really don't mean, like, I don't feel guilty. I really don't. And when I say that, I just don't know another word to say. But like, I understand. It's like, I'm like, dang, I'm like, I finesse the system somehow. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, I'm not perfect. You know what I mean? I'm not. Like, no one's perfect. And I don't have all the answers. I really don't. But that's why I just, as my gift, I guess, to whatever, is just to keep on spreading the message and doing and making more videos and really like, the whole prevention thing and really trying to, expand or whatever, because it's like you don't know who you could help. And if it's like if you just have it bottled in, you know what I mean, then it's like you can't help anybody. So
Right. I work with a guy. His name's Chris Heron. I don't know if you know
I
who
know
he
exactly
is.
what it is. I
Um,
actually sent him a quick story that, yeah, he went to my high school
and
and
spoke probably.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I actually DM'd him on Instagram like a couple months ago. I sent him a hoodie or whatever to his wellness center.
I worked there.
Oh no,
Yeah.
that's
So I knew I had recognized your brand for some reason. I didn't remember where. Now I'm connecting the dots.
really
Yeah. So
That's
so it's
wild.
funny. I think like this is all very circular to me. It's getting very philosophical in here, Mitch. I hope you're okay with it. But um so Chris, right? Chris speaks a lot all over the country. He speaks over 300 times a year. Um and as funny as it sounds, like your story is something that like it is like his it would be his greatest success story based on what he teaches and what he speaks and what he preaches in those in those talks. So he he's 15 years sober, and he spent the first 7 years of his talking and going around the country really focusing more on like how bad his addiction got and where it took him and all of the like
Yeah.
all the terrible things that happened to him and how bad addiction is and all of that. And in the last 5 years, and that I mean that was a powerful message, but he felt he was missing something. So he retooled it. And I think it's again, I like it's very powerful to me to sit here and listen to your story because I think it's people like you who had an impact on him because he changed the way that he spoke.
Yeah.
And now when he goes and he speaks at high schools and he speaks anywhere, with young people, he doesn't focus on where the addiction took him. He doesn't focus on the worst places of his addiction. He focuses on the first days,
Yeah.
like the first days of his using, the first days of his picking up a beer, the first days of his smoking a joint, like, and then he asks like the main point of his speech, and again, it's such parallels to you, like he's like why do we feel like we have to get out of our skin and out of our brains in order to have fun with people that we call friends, like and he hammers that home, and of course he had his own story and he suffered from it. He went down the path, and so did I, and Mitch, and obviously millions of other people, but like it's that's the question, like, and I could see that being for you, like that's the question that you ask people, like that's the place that you identify is like you were at the same crossroads that I was probably, and like okay, like, and when we both asked each other that, like, I asked myself that question of why, like, the answer came back is like, why not? Like, I'm not comfortable in my skin. I'm not this. I'm not that. And, you know, that mindset that you had is exactly the type of mindset that he's trying to build up. I think that's a really cool connection that you
Yeah.
saw him and you DM'd him. It's
Yeah, for sure.
the philosophies are very, very similar between you and him. It's very cool.
Yeah, he still follows on Instagram, like couple of my friends.
I
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure he came to my school like a couple times, multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love to
Amazing.
do anything with him, whatever, and his place out there. But no, I hate when I do this. I think of something. So this, my brain goes so crazy. I start thinking of what I'm gonna say, and I forget it.
Same.
Uh, but you were saying why? Forget it. I'll think of it. I'll think of
Moral
it.
of the story is it's really cool that this guy who started a wellness center and was a heroin addict
Yeah,
and this and that and the other thing, and he's asking the same questions you're asking.
right.
Why do we feel like we got to get out of our heads when we're 13, 14, 15-year-old kids hanging out with our friends on a Friday night? Why
Yeah,
aren't we comfortable? Why can't we love ourselves? Blah 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 blah. That's the same question. It's really powerful stuff, man.
yeah. No, I remembered it now. That's what you're saying. Yeah, why? Yeah, like I'll even ask like people I know or whatever, like just like a no judgment thing. Like even people that still drink, like not that they have a problem. I'm like, yeah, like I'm just curious, like why do you do it? Not a judging, like I don't, you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, it's like, look, that's your life, you know what I mean? But a lot of the people is like, it's just like, yeah, like it makes me more outgoing and blah blah blah, you know. And it's like, look, like like I when I say I understand, like I obviously I don't because I never done it, but I could understand how that is because even to
Mhm.
this day, like I'm not like I'll still go to a bar or whatever, and yeah, like maybe I open up a little bit, but for a couple hours I might just be standing there just looking around. You know what I mean? Like I'm not always like on go, but um, this especially for me, like it's just I didn't know the whole addictive personality thing, like really when I was younger, I guess. But now that's a big part of what I say. It's like, you know, I say when I say this, like, oh, like if I did it, I'd be like, I don't say that to be funny or anything. And I don't say that to be like, to make people feel like, oh, they won't have hope if they have my brain. But like, it's with me, it's life or death. Like,
Mm-hmm.
100%, like, you know what I mean? Like, definitely there's no going back now. It's just my brand, but like, ain't no alcohol. Like, I can't even, I couldn't even smoke a cigar. Even as like, I know, like, I couldn't even do that because if I did, I'd do 100 a day. Like,
Where does the emphatic no come from? Like when you talk about like going to a bar and stuff, and there's just like I'm not doing it. Where does that? What's behind that? Like for you?
well, now my brand, of course, you know what I mean? Because it's like I'm not going to contradict my brand and what I like, invested in and believe in or whatever. But I think it's a great question. I think I've always been a very like I've been I could learn from somebody and I could like try to listen, but I've always been like, if I believe in this is what I believe. I think it was just like a mindset thing, like, you know, if I could jump 5 feet, I could jump 5 feet. If I, you know what I mean? If I could run a mile in 10 seconds, I'm running my like whatever it was, you know what I mean? Like it was just I think it was because you see everybody else fold, you see everybody else cave in. You saw people in high school that were 100 GPAs, honors. Next thing you know, in college, they're doing acid. I don't judge. I don't judge. But, it's, but then it's some of it's, and I like I said, I don't judge, but then there's other cases where it's like some people that, were so smart and were this are some of the same people that were looking at me like I was crazy. You know what I mean? And that's why like I'll never judge, because everybody goes through life different, you know what I mean? And I always wanted to just like look like this is what I'm doing, you know what I mean? And um I never really told anybody like, yo, like, I've always just if my thing of saying, hey, like be careful is just like, hey, just be careful. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's like someone's gonna do something, they're gonna do it. You know what I mean? Um and thankfully, knock on wood, at least now, I can honestly say, like, from my point of view, like, none of my friends or anybody, like, has problems. You know what I mean? Thank God. Now, to some people, maybe one drink a week, you might look at that is a problem. You know what I mean? Everybody looks at things different. Um, but just from my point of view, like, look, I also say this to people like, look, I'm not saying to people don't ever take a sip of alcohol. I'm not saying don't ever. I'm not saying it. What I'm saying is, look, this is what I did. You know what I mean? And you have to understand why you would do that for what reason, And like, if you don't even know why you would want to do that, then it's like maybe just don't do it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And because look, let's face it, like we can be honest, like there's people that there's probably a 40-year-old dude out there that drinks a glass of wine maybe every 3 weeks on a Friday night. I mean, look, is that really hurting anybody? As long as he's not driving, probably not. You know what I mean? But there's people like me and maybe you guys that we can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because then it won't, what I'm saying? So it's like there's people that could handle it. And it's like, hey, whether it's right or wrong, if they're not hurting anybody or whatever, then that's their life. You know what I mean? But there's people out there that one glass turns into a lot more, and that's why you got to try to understand what your brain works, and before it's too late.
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it is. It's like my recovery looks like this, but really my recovery my recovery is really just my life.
Right.
So my life looks like this. This is what I need to do in order to for me operate the best. This is what works for me. This is what works for you. You know what I mean? Like everything that we're always talking about and stuff. That's why we never speak from any sort of like authoritative voice or like you should do this.
Yeah.
This is
No.
how we do it. This is how I do it. Or all I'm saying is this is all we ever say is this is what we do. This is what worked for us. If our story sounds similar to you, maybe try this because this is what we tried and it worked, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, and it works differently for everyone. And so just the general message that you promote of like, knowing like your truth, like, that you don't want to do that, that's not something for you. I think that's a beautiful thing. I think like more people, like if we can have more people listening to themselves and following that, the better.
Appreciate that. Yeah, for sure.
So, just to kind of close us out,
Yeah.
where's Always Sober going next? What are the next moves? What are the next plans? How are you going to advance the message?
So right now, I'm in the process of doing a couple of things. So there's going to be a vlog, which is called Building the Brand, which is basically me building the brand, like showing how I'm actually building my brand, like 5-minute vlogs or whatever, showing, all right, I'm going to just throwing on, I'm going to Moms Against Drunk Driving and I'm going to go do a meeting with them, or I'm going to the t-shirt place to do t-shirts, or like, you know what I mean? Like the actual business side of it. Then there's going to be like more of like a on the street kind of podcast thing where I'm going to be like interviewing like 10-minute videos of interviewing people and hearing their stories and trying to like spread the message like that. Because I'll tell you this real quick. So like I also have like I'm Jonny Berry and then there's Always Sober. Jonny Berry is the owner of Always Sober, but my whole life, if you look from a lens, it doesn't really say Always Sober because of how I explain myself. You know what I mean? From an outsider looking in, like nothing in my life really was like, this kid's always sober. You know what I mean? I've been very like, yeah, like sporadic, funny, the whole thing, right? So it's like you've had this goofy kid, and now I have like this legit real brand that's trying to spread like a real message. So I'm trying to figure out ways where it's like I don't want to be like, oh, I never drank every 5 seconds. Like, you know what I mean? Like I want to be able to really spread the message without like it just all being about me. Does that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, like I was the one who started, so it's a little hard to like, because like I started because of my, story or whatever, and so that's why I want to incorporate like other people and do like little sessions and things like that. Um, I also want to one day hopefully speak at schools,
Mm.
things like that, and get my like clothing in stores, and hopefully one day I could partner up with like a company and do like, oh, 10% goes to this organization or whatever. Um, or maybe even start my own, charity, things like that in the future. Uh, so yeah, there's a lot of big things coming.
That's dope. I appreciate you coming on, and I wish you nothing but success in that. And I'm excited for us to we could partner up and
Yeah, for
see where
sure.
we go from here. Yeah, I definitely got to cop a hat or a shirt or something because I'll rock that out here for sure. But thank you, Jonny. I really appreciate you coming on, and it was dope listening to you and a different perspective. And that's why I like love doing this because we got different people on all the time with different stories. And you never know who's going to listen to this and be like, I fuck with that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
thank you for talking with us, honestly.
yeah, no, it means a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really refreshing to hear somebody who never struggled with substances,
Mhm.
um, who didn't have to do this,
Mhm.
like, because for better or for worse, and Mitch, you can disagree on this if you want. I'm actually curious to hear if you agree or disagree, but like in the beginning, like I had to do this. Like it was almost forced on me, and it was for a number of reasons. Like my life was falling apart around me, and there was external reasons and all sorts of other things. But it wasn't like I chose like, oh yeah, I want to be sober. I make that choice today, but in the beginning, nobody really who is an active alcoholic or drug addict in my experience has ever been like, oh yeah, like I'm in active use, like now I just like I'm gonna put everything down and stop and live this lifestyle. So to see somebody who made that decision, like Mitch said, that emphatic no, to 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 all those situations, and has you've given yourself like really like such a unique opportunity to reach like such a diverse group of people, like from people like us who are in recovery to people who haven't even gotten there, like school age kids in middle school, high school, stuff like that. So yeah, man, I'm really 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 grateful that you came on, and excited to see where it goes. I mean, Always Sober it's catchy. It's like, I love the look of the merch. I definitely got to get a t-shirt, that's for sure. But yeah, man, I love hearing your perspective. It's new for us. Sometimes it's not that it gets stale, but like, Mitch and I go to meetings, we hear from recovering alcoholics and addicts a fair amount, and to hear this spin is it's unique. It's not something I've ever really heard before.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it means a lot.
Oh yeah. Well, everyone listening, this has been episode 46 with Jonny Berry. Check out his website, Always Sober, if you want to cop some merch, some hats, some shirts, hoodies. Thank you so much for listening, and we will keep coming back.